Hey, I'm Nate Sharpe, and this is my podcast. It's on the subject of pro athletes being paid. Here we go. Thank you. Recently, in professional sports, particularly the mainstream sports, such as football and basketball, there has been some controversy over pro athletes being overpaid. The lockouts and large salaries these players have been demanding have made many people bring up the point that they are way overpaid and don't deserve to be paid the salaries they are demanding. Many factors can be argued as to why players don't deserve their pay. But the most common of these factors is the injuries that these players are risking. Injuries are one of the biggest factors to argue when it comes to disputing whether players' pay is appropriate for what they do. Did you know the average lifespan for an NFL player is only 58, whereas the average lifespan for the average American is 76? That's 24% shorter than the life of someone not playing in the NFL. An elite athlete is also highly susceptible to knee injuries, about 16% more actually, and that percentage continues to rise 1.9% every year. A knee replacement, which is what would be called for if the injury is harsh enough, can amount in the tens of thousands of dollars depending on how much of the knee is injured. The average first-year professional athlete makes $800,000, but do they actually take home that much money? Not in professional sports, because they do not only pay income tax, but they also have to pay a tax on gifts they received at ceremonies and events. Along with taxes, people may look at having trainers, nutritional supplements, and nutritionists as a luxury, but should that really be considered a luxury? Athletes need to eat more food for energy needs. Michael Phelps in the 2008 Olympics was eating 12,000, not 1,200, 12,000 calories a day, and spending more than $100 a day on food. That's more than $700 a week for food. The living cost of a big city, which is generally where all professional teams are located, compared to a small town is bigger. But how much bigger? Well, according to thesimpledollar.com, it's 37.9% more. Another argument claimed by the public is that these athletes should not make more than officers of the law or teachers. Even though this is easy to agree with, it is impossible to do from a revenue perspective. Let's take the NBA's Miami Heat, for example. The American Airlines Arena, which is where they play, holds 19,600 people. If each fan pays $100 for a ticket, that's about the median price. That means in one game that Miami Heat just made about $1 million after paying the refs, arena, and all that stuff. With the Heat playing 41 home games, they make roughly $41 million off only ticket sales at 2 home games. Think about the food at the home games, the away games, the revenue, the jersey sales, team apparel, sales, not to mention individual player sponsorships and deals. Players are more or less entertainers in the same way Oprah, Jay Leno, and Chris Rock are. When they bring in hundreds of millions of dollars to a city and single-handedly control the economy of that city, I think it's safe to say they deserve a couple million of that. With the average American bringing in about $58,000, it is easy to see why people could say, "Oh, how can a guy that just throws a ball doesn't deserve to make a couple $1,000,000 a year?" But does the average American really understand the hardships put on these athletes' life? Did you know the divorce rate for a professional athlete is significantly higher than that of someone who is not a pro athlete? It's actually 50% higher. And this makes sense if you think about it, because they are never around to tend to their loved ones and their needs. The average force needed to give someone brain damage is around 50 Gs. Football players can be subjected to hits up to 200 Gs when hit. I bet you are also unaware of the fact that NFL players have a 6 times greater chance of committing suicide than an average person. This is because of the brain injuries, and it causes the players to become depressed more often than most people. The brain injuries cause protein deposits in the brain to have irregular behavior, and the injuries occurring over and over also cause the neurons to have the same irregular behavior. Why are these players getting paid so much to do something I would do for a much cheaper price or even free, most people say? The answer to this is simple and doesn't take any mind-boggling statistics or research. You're not at the skill level they are. Do you really think you could go out and guard LeBron James, a 6'8", 250-pound man who plays basketball hours on end every day? What about stop Calvin Johnson, a 6'5" wide receiver who runs a 40-yard dash a mere 2.2 seconds slower than the fastest man in the world? The answer to that is no. Most people in the world can't, and this is why most people in the world aren't paid millions of dollars for playing a sport. Even though the athletes do make the money they deserve in comparison to the money they bring in, it does not justify the fact that teachers, army soldiers, law officers, and people of that position make so much less money. These people work every day to change people's lives, yet are paid only in the tens of thousands, while people who entertain the public are paid tens of millions. But if you think about it, the public is what makes everything the way it is, and the public is directly what dictates why the professional players are paid so much. Just remember, next time you're judging a professional athlete about how much they make, think about the time you or one of your friends spent money on apparel or a ticket, and ponder on the irony of that thought.
Little boy still pushing big wheels. I stack my money, lay low and chill. Don't need to work hard, that's the way I feel like this is the way I live. 6 months later, now a big dog status. Name elevated.